What would you do if a cop sounded friendly, calm, and totally reasonable while getting you to give up your rights in under 30 seconds? Because that happens every single day, and most drivers don't even realize the trap until it's too late. The fastest way to lose your legal protection is not force. It's pressure that feels polite. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you could keep you from talking yourself into handcuffs. Smash like too, because when stress hits, you need these lines burned into your memory. Today you're going to learn the 6 psychological tricks cops use to make you say yes fast, the exact lines that shut each one down, and the court cases that explain why those lines matter. Let me show you exactly how they create false urgency, fake friendship, guilt, confusion, silence, and pressure that feels like a normal conversation. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the pattern is always the same. The driver thinks the officer is just chatting. The officer is actually collecting consent, statements, and mistakes. By the end of this video, you'll know how to slow the whole thing down, how to separate a request from an order, and how to stop giving away rights just because you wanted the stopover fast. If you ever drive, ride with friends, or get questioned on the street, this matters to you more than you think. Most people have no idea how fast these moments move. You get lights in your mirror, your heart starts pounding, the officer walks up calm while you're already tense. Then comes the pressure. Not screaming, not threats, just little lines that sound harmless. Can I take a quick look? You don't mind answering a few questions. If you've got nothing to hide, this will be easy. That is the game. Here's the reality. They want quick yes answers before your brain catches up. Listen closely because this is critical. Your biggest mistake is thinking you need a perfect speech. You do not. You need short, repeatable lines that protect you while keeping your tone calm. If you wait until the stop happens to invent those lines, you are already behind. That's why we're locking them in right now. The first trick is the casual request trick. This is when the officer makes something serious sound tiny. You'll hear, mind if I take a quick look, or just let me check real fast and we'll be done. The word quick is the trick. Quick makes your brain think small. Small makes you relax. Relaxed people say yes. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Word for word, memorize that line. No speech after it. No extra explaining. No nervous laughing. Just the line. Why does this work so well? Because consent is a huge deal. If you give it, you can wipe out one of your strongest protections. Schneckloth versus Bustamonte is the case every driver should know. In plain English, the Supreme Court said a search can be valid if you voluntarily consent. That means your little yes can do a lot of damage. The officer does not need you to sound thrilled. He just needs your answer to sound voluntary. That is why the request sounds so casual. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. The friendlier the request sounds, the easier it is to forget that your answer can open your whole car, bag, or pocket to inspection. Bad way, most drivers say, I guess that's fine. Then the officer gets consent, and the search becomes much harder to challenge later. Good way. Smart drivers say, officer, I do not consent to any searches. Then the officer has to rely on actual legal grounds instead of your nervous permission. Watch what happens when you use that line. The officer now knows you understand the difference between cooperation and consent. You can still be polite, you can still hand over your license, you can still follow lawful orders, but you are not volunteering extra access. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it is clean, short, and hard to twist. This is 100% legal. You do not have to help create evidence against yourself just because someone made the request sound polite, and do not miss the psychology here. The officer wants a fast answer because fast answers come from fear, not thought. Your line slows that down. It forces a line in the sand. That is power, not loud power, calm power. And calm power is what keeps you from waiving rights before you even know what happened. Have you ever been asked for a quick look during a stop? Drop a comment below because once you hear the trick, you can't unhear it. The second trick is fake urgency. This is when the officer acts like saying yes right now is the fastest way out. You'll hear things like, if you cooperate, we can clear this up fast, or help me out and you'll be on your way. That sounds tempting because you want the stopover, but urgency is how people get rushed into bad choices. Here's exactly what you say. Am I legally required to answer that or consent to that? Say it calmly. Say it once, then wait. That line works because it forces the moment to become clear. A lot of police requests are framed like you must do them when really the officer is testing whether you'll just go along. Your question flips the pressure back. Now the officer has to show whether this is a legal command or just a request fishing for consent. Former police officers have confirmed this works because most people never ask the basic question, they just react. Once you ask it, the tone changes, the whole stop slows down. Bad way. Most drivers say, sure, whatever helps me leave faster, then they start answering questions or agreeing to things they never had to do. Good way. Smart drivers say, am I legally required to answer that or consent to that? Then they force the officer to separate law from pressure. This matters because urgency creates bad math in your head. You start thinking 10 seconds of cooperation will save you 10 minutes. Sometimes it does the opposite. You answer one question, then 5 more come after it. You agree to one quick check, then the stop expands. You think you're ending the encounter. You may actually be feeding it. Here's the reality. Fast yes answers feel safe in the moment, but they can cost you later when every word and every consent choice is written into a report. The third trick is fake friendship. This one gets people all the time. The officer softens his voice, leans in, and acts like you and him are just two people having a real talk. You'll hear, "Be honest with me, help me understand," or "just tell me what's going on and I'll help you out." That sounds human because it is supposed to, but the goal is not friendship. The goal is to get statements. You look at the officer and say this: "I choose to remain silent and I want a lawyer." Those exact words. This works because your own words are often the strongest evidence against you, not because they are always dramatic, because they lock you into a story. You say you came from one place, later the officer says it was another. You say you had one drink, later the officer says your speech was slurred. You say you do not know whose bag that is. Later that sentence gets repeated like guilt. Miranda v. Arizona matters here, but so does what came after it. Courts have made clear that if you want to use your rights, you need to say it clearly. That is why your line must be direct. Not maybe. Not "I think I should get a lawyer." Say it clean. Bad way. Most drivers say, "I'm being honest, officer. I only had one beer." Then that statement becomes part of the case and the questions keep coming. Good way. Smart drivers say, "I choose to remain silent and I want a lawyer." Then the officer loses the easiest source of evidence, which is your own mouth. Watch what happens after you use it. The officer may keep talking. He may act disappointed. He may say he was trying to help you. That is the pressure. Stay quiet anyway. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection. When the conversation starts sounding warm and personal, this is 100% legal. And no, asking for a lawyer does not mean you are guilty. It means you understand that a roadside conversation is not the place to freestyle your future. If you've already had one of these "just be honest with me" moments, drop a like right now, because that line has trapped more people than they will ever admit. The fourth trick is guilt. This is when they make your rights sound suspicious. You'll hear, "Innocent people don't need lawyers," or "If you've got nothing to hide, why not let me check?" That line is designed to make you feel dirty for protecting yourself. That is the whole move. Here's exactly what you say: "I'm exercising my rights and I'm not consenting." Short, calm, done. This works because guilt only works if you accept the frame. Once you do, you start defending yourself instead of protecting yourself. You try to prove you're a good person. You answer extra questions. You agree to extra steps. You stop thinking like someone with rights and start thinking like someone begging to be believed. Do not do that. The law does not require you to prove innocence by surrendering privacy. Your rights are for regular people on normal days, not just for guilty people on bad days. This is where Bumper v. North Carolina helps you understand the bigger picture. In simple English, the Supreme Court said consent is not real consent if it comes from false authority. That case involved an officer saying he had a warrant. But the basic lesson matters here too. Pressure can make consent look voluntary when it really was pushed. Your clean refusal helps show you were not agreeing freely. You were holding your ground. Bad way. Most drivers say, "I'm not hiding anything, so go ahead." Then the officer gets the consent he wanted, and your guilt response becomes the doorway. Good way. Smart drivers say, "I'm exercising my rights and I'm not consenting." Then the officer loses the shame trick and has to stand on actual law. This one is huge because shame makes smart people dumb for a minute. You do not want to look difficult. You do not want to look scared. So you say yes. That is exactly why the trick works. If you remember nothing else from this section, remember this: rights do not become suspicious just because an officer acts offended that you use them. The fifth trick is confusion between an order and a request. This is one of the sneakiest ones. The officer says something with command voice, but the words are still asking for your permission. "Open that bag for me. Let me see your phone real quick. Step over here and unlock that." It sounds mandatory even when it may not be. Here's exactly what you say: "Is that a lawful order, or are you asking for my consent?" Word for word. That line works because confusion is a weapon. If you cannot tell what is required and what is optional, you will usually overcomply. You will give more than the law demands just to avoid conflict. But once you ask this question, the fog starts clearing. Either the officer says it is an order, or he admits he is asking. That difference matters. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. A lot of police-citizen contact lives or dies on whether something was voluntary, required, or backed by real legal grounds. Think about how powerful this is in real life. You do not have to argue case law on the roadside. You do not have to give a speech about the Constitution. You just ask one clean question: is this an order or a request for consent? That forces precision, and precision helps you. Sloppy gray zones help the government. There is also a practical side. Once you ask it, you slow your own panic down. Your brain stops treating every sentence from the officer like an automatic command. You become deliberate. That is how you stop getting pushed into yes moments you never even noticed happening. The sixth trick is silence and delay. This one feels weird, but it works on people all the time. The officer asks a question, then says nothing. He just stares. Or he keeps you waiting and waiting, then tosses in another question when you are uncomfortable. Humans hate silence. Humans hate uncertainty, so you fill the gap. You start talking, you explain things nobody asked, or you ask if there is a problem, which opens more conversation. Here's exactly what you say. Am I being detained or am I free to leave? Those exact words. That line is powerful because it stops the drift. If the stop has a legal reason to continue, the officer can say so. If not, you should not sit there trapped in awkward delay while the officer tries to wear you down into mistakes. Rodriguez versus United States matters here. In plain English, the Supreme Court said police cannot drag out a traffic stop longer than needed just to go fishing for something else unless they have real legal reason. That means time matters. Silence matters. Delay matters. Bad way. Most drivers say, is something wrong? I swear I didn't do anything. Then they start talking, guessing, and feeding the encounter. Good way. Smart drivers say, am I being detained or am I free to leave? Then they force the moment back into a legal lane instead of a pressure lane. And here is what makes this trick so dangerous. Silence feels harmless. It does not feel like pressure, but it is pressure. It makes you want to earn your way out with words. Don't let the silence sit there if it has to. Your discomfort is not a legal duty. Your job is not to rescue the conversation. If you've made it this far, you're already ahead of almost everybody on the road. Hit that like button because the next part ties these 6 tricks into the legal framework you actually need. Now let's connect the law in plain English. Schneckloth v. Bustamonte is about consent. Simple version. If you voluntarily say yes to a search, courts often treat that as a real waiver of your protection. That is why the casual request trick is so dangerous. Miranda v. Arizona is about your right to stay silent and ask for a lawyer during questioning. Simple version. If you want those rights to protect you, you need to say so clearly. That is why fake friendship and guilt are so dangerous. Rodriguez v. United States is about time. Simple version. Police cannot keep stretching a stop longer than needed just to hunt for something new without a valid reason. That is why silence, delay, and endless extra questions matter so much. Put those 3 ideas together and the whole system makes more sense. Consent can open the door. Talking can feed the case. Delay can create more pressure. Your short lines are built to stop all 3. Let me show you exactly how this sounds in a real stop. You get pulled over for rolling through a stop sign. The officer walks up smiling and says, "We can make this easy if you just work with me." Wrong move first. You laugh nervously. He asks if there is anything in the car he should know about. You say no. He asks if he can take a quick look. You say sure, go ahead. Then he asks where you are coming from. You start telling a story. He pauses and stares. You keep talking because the silence feels awful. Then he says, if you are innocent, why not unlock your phone and clear this up? Now you are deep in it, and you got there step by step. Now the right way, same stop, same officer, same smile. He says, we can make this easy if you work with me. You stay calm. He asks to take a quick look. You say, officer, I do not consent to any searches. He asks where you are coming from. You say, I choose to remain silent and I want a lawyer. He tries the guilt angle. You answer, I'm exercising my rights and I'm not consenting. He uses command voice and says, let me see your phone real quick. You answer, is that a lawful order, or are you asking for my consent? Then he lets the moment hang there in silence. You do not fill it. You ask, am I being detained, or am I free to leave? That is how you keep the stop from turning into a volunteer confession. Not by being rude, not by being dramatic, by being short, calm, and consistent. Next week, I'm revealing what to say when cops claim they smell weed. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because that one gets people searched every single day. So burn these 6 ideas into your head. When a request sounds tiny, refuse consent clearly. When the pressure sounds urgent, ask if you are legally required. When the officer sounds like a friend, stay silent and ask for a lawyer. When they try to shame you, remember rights are not suspicious. When a request sounds like an order, ask which one it is. And when silence starts wearing you down, ask if you are detained or free to leave. That is how you stop psychological pressure from turning into a legal disaster for you. Hit subscribe so you catch the next video before you need it in real life. Smash like if this just changed the way you'll handle a stop. And drop a comment telling me which of the 6 tricks shocked you most. Stay safe out there.